Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 310, Having a Wailord of a Time. The episode begins almost 2 weeks after the last episode, as the 2-week wait for May's first contest was almost over. Ash and the gang were killing time, still waiting at the Slateport Pokemon Center. May figured she was prepared for the contest, but she knew that she should probably get some training in anyways. So first, she went just outside the Pokemon Center to see several other coordinators practicing with their Pokemon to get inspiration. She saw a boy practice Double Team with his Wingull, a girl help her Azurill bounce on its tail, and another guy polishing his Aggron to make it extra shiny. Ash and Brock and Max watched all this as well, having their Pokemon out, with Brock sending out his Mudkip and Fortress, and Lotad, and Ash sending out his Tailo, Trico, and Corphish, along with Pikachu, obviously. Upon seeing all these people, May was definitely inspired to go train, although Brock warned her that with all these people, there'd be a lot of competition for her to face, and Ash agreed with this. However, May reminded them that Drew was probably her strongest opponent anyways, so as long as she could just focus on beating him, that's all that mattered. May then remembers her last encounter with Drew from the last episode, and specifically thinks of the moment where he initially caught the third Frisbee, and the moment where he tried to stop her from getting mad at her, and the moment where she almost beat his ass in the battle, and technically did beat his ass, and of course the moment when he left and kind of admitted that he had a bit of respect for her. After this little flashback of hers, May was even more excited for her rematch against Drew, and declared that she was going to go get some more training in to make sure she was absolutely ready. Although she reassures Ash and Brock that she was still confident she could win, she just wanted to be absolutely sure. She then tells Brock to look after Torchic as she goes off to train with only her Beautyfly, leaving before Brock could even accept May's request to look after her Torchic. Speaking of Torchic, as it watched May go off with only Beautyfly, it felt left out and upset, also wanting to go with May. Torchic tries to inform May of this by calling out to her, but May doesn't take the hint and simply just says that she'd be back soon. Max noticed that Torchic was basically almost crying at this point, though didn't know what to do about it. With May gone, Ash, Max, and Brock go back in the Pokemon Center diner with all of their Pokemon, and they begin eating and drinking. Suddenly, Max starts yelling, not even able to focus on his food, as he complains to Ash and Brock how it wasn't fair what May was doing to Torchic. She was just leaving it alone, almost like she didn't care about Torchic anymore. Torchic, of course, overheard Max sticking up for it, and basically stating how May shouldn't have left it behind, and Torchic immediately took a liking to Max, happily listening to Max defending it. Ash and Brock didn't share the same opinion as Max, though they still thought that May did care about Torchic, and asked Max why he thought that she didn't, leading Max to explain that he believed that she only fucking cared about her Beautyfly now, because that's all that she trained with. Ash retorted, however, that May simply loved all her Pokemon, not just her Beautyfly, explaining that May and Torchic had a bond that could never be broken, because Torchic was her starter Pokemon. Brock agreed with Ash, and informed Max that no matter how many Pokemon May would capture, although she would have strong bonds with them as well, Torchic would always hold a very special place in May's heart, because starter Pokemon were just that connected to their trainer. Max didn't understand how a starter Pokemon held so much value to a trainer, leading Ash to explain that was only because Max wasn't a trainer, so he couldn't understand yet. Ash then directs his own and Max's attention to all of his Pokemon that were happily eating some Pokemon food, and states that he did in fact like all of his Pokemon the same, but Pikachu was a bit of an exception because it had been with him from the start. So they were essentially just forced to share a special bond in comparison to all of Ash's other Pokemon. Ash then shows Max his special bond with Pikachu, as Pikachu leaps up onto his shoulder by pure habit, and they laugh with each other, as they recall when Pikachu was stubborn at first when they first met, and they could barely get along, but they became friends, because starter Pokemon and trainers would always find a way to become friends, it seemed like. Max finally begins to understand why trainers love starter Pokemon so much, when Brock added that without a starter Pokemon, a trainer's journey couldn't even begin, so that could be another reason why trainers are so attached to their starters. Max, fully seeing the importance of starter Pokemon now, asked Brock what his starter Pokemon was, knowing that he must have left it at the pewter gym since he was a rock-type trainer, and he currently had no rock-types with him, and he wondered how, if starters were so important to their trainers, why Brock had left his starter at the pewter gym. Brock assures Max that he really did care about his starter, and that he would never forget it, even if they weren't together anymore, as he then explains that his starter was an Onix, as he has a flashback of his 10th birthday when he met Onix. Specifically, he remembered waking up and immediately found an Onix with a red ribbon around its neck, having made its way into his room through his window. His father Flint came in immediately after and explained how Onix was his 10th birthday gift, to celebrate him being officially allowed to become a trainer. Brock then also remembered how immediately after this, he and his father Flint got on Onix's head, and they went to the mountains, where they watched the sunrise together, and his dad wished him a happy birthday, stating that Onix would be Brock's best friend for life, no matter what. After hearing this story, Max seriously questioned how Brock could have given up his Onix, leading Brock to state that he never felt closer to his father than when he gave him Onix as a gift, so he wanted to try and make his brother Forrest feel closer to him while he was gone. So that's why he revealed that he gave his Onix to his brother Forrest, although we already knew this, but Max didn't. I have to say, that's a pretty sweet moment for Brock. He just left Onix behind because he wanted his brother to train with it, but there was actually another reason. He wanted his brother to feel closer to him when he gave him it. Damn. Ash was surprised and laughed a bit at how fucking sensitive Brock was. He didn't expect Brock to do something like that for his brother, and Brock embarrassingly laughed, remembering that he always wanted to try and be as tough and macho as possible to impress girls, so he probably shouldn't expose himself as a super sensitive guy. Upon hearing these stories, Max was now immensely intrigued by the concept of a starter Pokemon, and began to imagine what starter Pokemon he could potentially get, and debated which one he wanted. Debating specifically between the 3 Hoenn starters, of course, Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip, and he begins to explain the benefits and drawbacks of each one, which gets the attention of May's Torchic, Ash's Trico, and Brock's Mudkip. Although Max then remembered that he may not even get one of the main starter Pokemon when he became a trainer, since his father was a gym leader and could just gift him one of his Pokemon. However, Max remembered that his father had already tried to make Max a trainer and gift him one of his Pokemon, being one of his spare Slackoth, but took the Slackoth back when it immediately just lied on Max and crushed him, making him cry in pain. The mere memory of this forced Max to come back to reality, as he told Ash and Brock that Slackoth would definitely be off the table. He wouldn't choose that as a starter for sure. Just then, Nurse Joy walked past Ash and the gang while doing her rounds around the Pokemon Center. Brock, being Brock, immediately stepped up to flirt with Nurse Joy, as he asked her if he needed any help. However, Nurse Joy politely turned him down, being freaked out by Brock's flirting. To distract herself from Brock's creepy flirting, she directs her attention to May's Torchic, Brock's Mudkip, and Ash's Trico as they were eating, and asked if they belonged to Ash and Brock, leading Ash to confirm this, though clarify that Torchic did belong to one of their friends who was out at the moment. This led Nurse Joy to compliment all three of the starters being in great condition, and state that Ash, Brock, and their friend must have raised their Pokemon quite well, and because of this, she requested that they actually help her out with something, leading Ash to ask what this was, leading Nurse Joy to reveal that there was a new trainer that was coming to the Pokemon Center to choose a starter Pokemon of their own, of course, being a Trico, Mudkip, and Torchic. Now, of course, she wasn't asking Ash and Brock to give up one of their Pokemon, but she figured that since they knew how to raise Trico, Mudkip, and Torchic, then they could help her do a checkup on her own Trico, Mudkip, and Torchic to make sure they were in good enough shape to be given to this new trainer, stating that she was actually on her way to go do her checkup on the starters, but now that Ash and Brock were there, she could definitely use their help. Ash was wondering what the checkup actually involved, although Brock didn't ask any questions, as, wanting to impress Nurse Joy, he promised to do his best checkup he could possibly do on the Pokemon. Nurse Joy was still freaked out by Brock's forcefulness, but she just tried to laugh it off, as she thanks him for his enthusiasm and informs Ash that all he had to do was just look after the Pokemon for a bit and make sure they were in good condition. Ash, and especially Brock, since he wanted to impress Nurse Joy, were immensely down for this, and Max was also down for this because he wanted the chance to get to experience starter Pokemon in person that weren't already May's, Brock's, or Ash's. Meanwhile, May had decided to go to the Slateport Beach to train with her Beautyfly for the contest and ordered it to use Silverwind. And just like last episode, it used the attack successfully, leading May to congratulate it and state that they just had to practice it a little bit more to make it perfect, since the attack specifically had to last a bit longer than it did to impress the judges enough to win the contest. Beautyfly obliges and goes to use Silverwind again, but it soon stopped, leading May to ask it what was wrong, and she turns to see what Beautyfly had spotted, being an injured Wailord beached ashore, some feet down the beach. Since she had never seen a Wailord before, she was shocked both to see it injured and because of how fucking huge it was. Meanwhile, back at the Pokemon Center, Nurse Joy escorted Ash and Brock and Max to the back of the Pokemon Center to a room that resembled a mini laboratory, leading Nurse Joy to explain that since there was no actual Pokemon laboratory owned by a professor that could give out starters in Slateport, then it was her job at the Pokemon Center to give out the starters in a laboratory to new trainers, stating that all the new trainers in Slateport began their journey after coming to the Pokemon Center. Max, Brock, and Ash looked around the laboratory and all of its machines in utter amazement, as Nurse Joy then put her 3 starter Pokemon on one of the machines to make sure they were in good health by doing an analysis on them thanks to the machine, and thankfully confirmed that they were in good health. Thankfully, since they were, Nurse Joy then took the Pokeballs off of the analysis machine and asked Ash's Trico, May's Torchic, and Brock's Mudkip to give her 3 starter Pokemon some pointers on how to act professional while they were being picked by the trainer. And Ash's Trico, May's Torchic, and Brock's Mudkip accepted this task, leading Nurse Joy to let Max let her 3 starters out per his request, because he really wanted to send out a Pokemon that at least felt like his own, even though it wasn't. So Nurse Joy handed Max the Pokeballs to her 3 starters, and told him to let her 3 starters exercise a bit so that they could burn off some energy before the trainer arrived, so that they would be more calm. Max agrees to this, so Nurse Joy leaves momentarily, leaving the 3 starters in Max's trust, as she goes to check on some of the injured Pokemon really fast in the Pokemon Center. During this time, Max threw out the first Pokeball, and a mean-looking Torchic came out, though May's Torchic surmised that this Torchic must have just been determined, not angry, and it was impressed by this. So it ran up to greet it, only to see if it actually was angry. And Torchic then did as Nurse Joy had asked of it, which was to make this Torchic more calm, so that it would be more suitable for a beginning trainer. Max then sent out the second starter, Mudkip, next, although immediately upon coming out, it started to cry, leading Brock's Mudkip to go up to it and hold out its tail, which made the other Mudkip stop crying, as it was happy to play with it. So, Brock's Mudkip had done its job assigned by Nurse Joy to make the Mudkip more calm as well. Max was then most excited to send out his personal favorite of the 3 Hoenn starters, Trico, who immediately upon coming out of his Pokeball, clasped its hands together and danced elegantly. This Trico happened to be a female, while Ash's was a male, so Ash's Trico was very impressed by this dancing. Okay, I know this is funny, fucking Pokemon fucking love is what we're implying here, but it's funny because I'm recording this video, shows how I pre-record, right, but I'm recording this video on the same day that the Game Freak leaks came out that involved those disturbing stories about a woman in the Typhlosion. If you've seen the leaks, then you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyways, Right as Ash's Trico tried to impress this female Trico, Nurse Joy suddenly got a call on her video phone, and she picked it up to find May on screen, who sounded extremely stressed as she had called Nurse Joy to inform her about the injured Wailord, explaining that she was just training with a Beautifly when she then saw Wailord beached, and it added that it looked rather injured. Joy informs May that she would go over to the beach and take care of things, although Ash thought that this would be difficult, even for Nurse Joy, since he looked up Wailord in his Pokedex, and it mentioned that Wailord was the largest Pokemon in all of existence, at least in terms of regular Pokemon, not legendaries, but you know what I mean. Anyway, who knows, maybe Wailord maybe even is the largest of all. Anyways, that's why Ash thought it would be difficult, but Joy didn't care about this, as she simply left the Pokemon Center, telling Ash, Brock, and Max to watch her starters while she was gone, and tells them to specifically not let any of the starter Pokemon outside, because they weren't used to the outdoors yet, since she hadn't really exposed them to anywhere outside of the laboratory, aside from before she had got them, when she was given them by, presumably, Professor Birch. With Nurse Joy leaving, Ash turned to Max and Brock and asked them what they should do with the starters. However, Brock didn't stay for long, as he simply chased after Nurse Joy, telling her that he was sure he could help her out with the Wailord, not revealing that he mostly just wanted to go with Nurse Joy to flirt with her some more. Although Nurse Joy didn't know this, so she accepted Brock's help, as she and Brock reminded Ash and Max not to leave the starters alone, because they were too young, for now. Ash then freaked out, because he wasn't sure if he and Max could really take care of these young Pokemon, all on their own. But Max, however, was confident that he and Ash could look after the 3 starters, as he looked down at them, very excited to take care of Pokemon for the first time, as if he was an actual trainer. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was standing outside the laboratory window with a sound amplifier that they still had from all the way back in fucking Johto, because I don't think they've used it in Hoenn yet. And because of their sound amplifier, they had heard Nurse Joy's conversation with May about Wailord. And Jessie quickly asked James if he was thinking what she was, and James quickly stated that they should go and catch the 3 starters now that Ash and Max were alone, although Jessie revealed that this wasn't what she was thinking of, and annoyedly told James that it should have been obvious that they should go for Wailord instead, since it was already injured as fuck. James agreed with this, as well as Jessie's reasoning for wanting a Wailord, being that if they had a huge Pokemon, then they would be able to defeat Ash and the gang all the time. And Meowth was also down to catch the Wailord, adding that they wouldn't have to keep buying and repairing their goddamn Magikarp sub if they had a Wailord, because they could just go in the water on Wailord. If that wasn't enough to convince Team Rocket to go after Wailord, Meowth also added that he knew Giovanni likely would enjoy big things, including big Pokemon, and Jessie and James declared that if they were to give Giovanni a big Pokemon in that case, then that would mean a big promotion for them, and Meowth agreed with this, as they all happily cheered, ready to get the Wailord, as Wobbuffet popped out with his Pokeball, wanting to help out. Meanwhile, back in the Pokemon Center laboratory, Ash's fear that he and Max wouldn't be able to look after the starters on their own was proven right, as the Torchic tried to run off in an attempt to get outside for the first time, eager. Of course, Ash and Max tried their best to not let it get away, as they gave chase, with Max going on ahead, exclaiming that he had to prove that he could take care of a Pokemon, so he had to get it back. Ash doubted that he and Max alone would be able to catch up, though, so he called for Brock's Mudkip, May's Torchic, and his Trico to help as well, and they all began to chase the runaway Torchic as it walked in a hallway out of the laboratory. Even Nurse Joy's Trico and Nurse Joy's Mudkip went after Nurse Joy's Torchic, but May's Torchic and Brock's Mudkip managed to reach it first, even faster than Max, although they couldn't stop Nurse Joy's Torchic, as it pecked May's Torchic until it fell back, and then it tackled Mudkip away and kept running. Pikachu was determined not to let it escape, though, so it jumped in front of Torchic and tried to use Thunderbolt, which does cause Torchic to stop in its tracks, although Torchic was able to manipulate Pikachu to not use Thunderbolt, as it started to fake cry to make Pikachu feel guilty. Combined with the immense frown on Torchic's face, Pikachu couldn't bring himself to attack it anymore, but this backfired on him since it was just Torchic's plan, and it used Ember on Pikachu, knocking Pikachu down, with the Torchic smiling in its own cunning before continuing to run away, only to be stopped by none other than Ash's Trico this time, who jumped in front of it. And all Trico proceeded to do from there was angrily glare at the Torchic, looking at it from behind, which petrified the Torchic to the point where it stopped running, allowing Max to pick it up in his hands. And thank Trico for all of its help, because now Torchic's escape attempt had been stopped. Nurse Joy's Trico and Mudkip were glad for this, as they told the Torchic to be more like them and obey orders by staying behind and not running off. The Torchic still refused to listen, though, because even though it was currently in Max's hands, it simply used a peck on his hands, causing Max to drop the Torchic and allowing it to continue running. This leads Ash to send in his Corphish to deal with it, as Corphish goes in for a Crab Hammer attack on it, but Torchic merely jumped to dodge, and then used a barrage of scratch attacks on Corphish before continuing to run away, since Corphish was weakened. Corphish managed to get in front of it and tried to Crab Hammer again, but Torchic just jumped over it this time and ran all the way outside, making Corphish angry as it chased after it, along with Ash and Max. And soon, both of the Trico and both of the Mudkip joined Ash and Max and Corphish in their chase as well, along with Pikachu, obviously. During the run, Ash's Trico was running in front of Nurse Joy's Trico and turned to make sure it was doing good because, it liked it and everything, and saw that Nurse Joy's Trico had put a flower in its mouth to emulate Trico having a twig in its mouth, which made Trico think that maybe this female Trico liked him back. As for Nurse Joy's Mudkip, it was still crying, so Mudkip was forced to comfort it as they continued on running. Eventually, Corfish, being extremely angry still, was able to make it ahead of everyone else, and that included the Torchic as it tackled it. Torchic gets up though, and it was now angry as well, so it tackled Corfish as Corfish tackled it back. So both Pokemon were sent flying back, leading Max to think that the battle would end in a draw. However, Torchic was able to land on its feet, whereas Corfish was able to not land on its feet, being knocked out. Allowing Torchic to shake its ass at the knockdown Corfish to taunt it as it runs away into some bushes, leaving Max and Ash shocked at how fucking powerful Torchic was. Corfish managed to get back up out of pure anger for the Torchic though, as it continued to chase after it, along with everyone else. Meanwhile, Nurse Joy and Brock had met up with May, her Beautifly, and the Wailord at the beach, and Nurse Joy asked Brock to hand her her medical supplies that she had given him the hole while they ran, and Nurse Joy used it to heal up Wailord's wounds, and because of this, she happily commented that Wailord would be fine, it would just need more rest. May was of course pleased by this, while Brock, still in love with Nurse Joy, was in awe of her healing abilities, stating that Nurse Joy could heal fucking anything, making Nurse Joy laugh. Meanwhile, Ash, Max, and all the Pokemon had managed to catch up to Torchic again, and the angry Corfish crab-hammered it immediately, leading Torchic to retaliate with a tackle, and the battle just kept going. Crab-hammer, tackle, crab-hammer, tackle, crab-hammer, tackle. Max and Ash were getting frustrated at this point, because they just wanted to take Torchic back, right? So they begged Corfish and Torchic to stop fighting, and for Torchic to come back. But the fight continued, as Torchic finally switched up its attack, using Ember on Corfish, causing it to be knocked out once again, this time so bad that it was unable to get back up. Leaving Max and Ash even more shocked than before at Torchic's power, as Torchic jumps up happily, pleased that it won, when suddenly it begins to glow and evolves into a Combuskin, shocking Ash and Max even more. Ash quickly scans the Combuskin with his Pokédex, but he soon begins to panic after this, as does Max, as he was worried that now Combuskin couldn't be given out as a starter Pokemon, and Ash began to have a vision of this, where Nurse Joy asked a young girl to pick her first Pokemon, and she sees the cute Trico and Mudkip, but she then gets scared off, running away when she sees the giant Combuskin as another option, screaming her head off in fear. Ash obviously knew that they were in a very fucking bad predicament, and still panicked. However, Max was more calm, suggesting that they give the Combuskin to May, and try to tell her that while she was gone, her Torchic had evolved into it. Ash was against this idea, as he told Max that since May was so close to her Torchic, she would probably be able to tell the difference, and would therefore start screaming at Ash and Max for not actually giving her Torchic and questioning where it was and shit, and Ash and Max obviously wanted to avoid this, so they sighed, not being able to come up with a plan. Thankfully though, Ash then thought of something, being that they should pass May's Torchic off as Nurse Joy's Torchic and have it as an option for the trainer to pick as a starter, but do everything they could to try and make sure that the trainer just ended up picking Mudkip or Trico instead. Meanwhile, after healing the Wailord, May, Nurse Joy, and Brock had returned to the Pokemon Center, and May decided to take a little break, sitting at a table in the Pokemon Center dining room with her Beautifly, when suddenly Max showed up and gave May some tea. Stating his reasoning for this, as May being so busy today with the Wailord that she would probably like some tea to help relax, and asks May if she wanted anything else. All of this nice treatment was making May suspicious, because, Max never treated her nicely like this. So she thanked Max for the tea as she drank it, but questioned why Max was being so nice to her, leading Max to panically laugh, trying to come up with an excuse, stating that's just what brothers were for. Obviously, he was trying to distract May. She still doubted this, but she had to admit that the tea was good, so she just kept drinking it. Meanwhile, the trainer, who happened to be a little girl named Stephanie, had arrived to pick her starter Pokemon, with Nurse Joy happily presenting her with Torchic, Trico, and Mudkip. Stephanie was with her father, and they were both eagerly inspecting the starters, debating which one the girl should choose. Unbeknownst to the girl or her father, though, Ash and Max had in fact switched out Nurse Joy's Torchic, which was now Combuskin, with May's Torchic. The girl was having trouble picking one of the starters, as she was extremely indecisive, when suddenly her thinking was interrupted when she, along with Nurse Joy, and her father, and Ash and Brock, who were also in the room, heard a loud banging noise coming from the closet, which was revealed to be Combuskin trying to break down a door to the closet, because Ash and Max had stuffed Combuskin into the closet while Nurse Joy, May, and Brock were still gone, so that Combuskin couldn't cause any trouble. But it definitely was trying to cause some trouble, as Nurse Joy questioned what the fuck the noise was, leading Ash to lie, assuring her that it was just the wind. Ash then distracted himself from the troublemaking Combuskin by intently watching Stephanie, still trying to choose what starter she wanted. The next time Stephanie examined Mudkip, Ash decided to get involved and try and persuade Stephanie to take Mudkip, telling her how great Mudkip was. However, Stephanie then turned to the Trico, so Ash changed his tune and told her that Trico was actually even greater, though clarified that she could pick Mudkip too if she wanted. However, Stephanie just looked at Torchic and exclaimed how she found it cute, and she wanted to choose it. This leads Ash to panically shout that Stephanie did not want Torchic, stating that It was the worst Pokemon a trainer could start off with. Stephanie asked why this was, although Ash could barely think of anything, just naming off its attacks, as if its attacks were bad. I mean, Ember and Scratch were pretty okay moves. Brock had noticed Ash's worried attitude, so he asked him what was wrong, leading Ash to simply state that he just didn't want the girl to pick Torchic. He just wanted her to pick Trico and Mudkip instead, not wanting to reveal to Brock the truth. Meanwhile, May had just finished her tea and remembered that Max and Ash were supposed to be looking after the starter Pokemon, as well as technically her Torchic, so she asked where her Torchic even was. Max obviously got nervous at this, not wanting to reveal the truth, so he lied that Torchic was outside playing with Pikachu. So this led May to get up from the table and go outside, so she could find Torchic and greet it. This leads Max to hurriedly rush to the exit in front of May and block her way, and claims that May couldn't see Torchic right now because otherwise she would be interrupting their game of hide-and-seek that they were playing apparently, and suggests that May should just hang out with Max some more. May was obviously suspicious of this because Max had never played hide-and-seek with Torchic before, and also, Max never wanted to hang out with May like this, so she angrily asked Max where Torchic really was, not believing his story anymore. Max tried to come up with another lie, but May then stated that she knew that Max was distracting her and demanded to know where the fuck Torchic really was, so Max got nervous as he knew he couldn't come up with another lie. Meanwhile, back with Stephanie, Nurse Joy, Stephanie's father, Ash, Brock, Ash is pleased for Stephanie not to pick Torchic. Seemed to have actually gotten to Stephanie's head, as she was back to square one, still deciding what Pokemon she wanted, as Ash continued to suggest that only Trico or Mudkip were good options, although Stephanie's father jumped in, assuring her that Torchic did look like a good option as well, and told her to pick the one that she really wanted, not be influenced by anyone. Just then, we saw that Max had caved in and told May where Torchic really was, as May had now ran into the laboratory room, extremely angry, when suddenly her Torchic noticed her and jumped from the starter table into May's arms, happily. Which is just what May was suspecting, as Max had told her that her Torchic was in the laboratory room. As May hugged her Torchic, happy to have it back, she demanded answers from Ash, wanting to know why the fuck Torchic was here in the laboratory room, being given to another trainer potentially. Just then, Max went into the room, admitting to Ash that May had broke free from him and he wasn't able to hold her back. Ash was then bombarded with a second question, this one being from Brock, as he asked Ash where Nurse Joy's Torchic was if May's was the one on the starter table. On cue, just as Ash was trying to come up with an excuse, the Combuskin was able to break down the closet door and come out, making everyone confused, especially Nurse Joy, as she knew that she didn't have a Combuskin at the Pokemon Center. Knowing that the jig was up, this led Ash and Max to confess what they had done, explaining that they wanted to switch Torchic and Combuskin, since Combuskin had run off and evolved, so they knew that they couldn't use Nurse Joy's Torchic, which was now Combuskin, as the starter, and they then apologized to Nurse Joy for trying to deceive her, as well as to May. Just then, though, before Nurse Joy can say anything, Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy heard what sounded like a Wailord cry. Everyone then notices a Wailord flying in the sky, since the laboratory was at the top of the Pokemon Center, apparently. Ash obviously wondered how the fuck Wailord could fly, but he then noticed what everyone else had already noticed. I don't know why it took Ash so long to notice this, that the Wailord was being held in a harness with a red R on it, signifying that Wailord had just been captured by Team Rocket, and Ash and the gang ran outside, along with Nurse Joy, Stephanie, and her father, to see that this was truly the case. Wailord was being taken away by Team Rocket in their Meowth balloon, since they had stolen Wailord from the Pokemon Center. Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy and Stephanie and her father, along with the Combuskin, which had also run out, demand that Team Rocket give the Wailord back, but obviously Team Rocket refused and did their motto, pretending to be swimmers in the water, as Meowth laughed, explaining that he had purposely attached heavy-duty fans to their Meowth balloon, so carrying the heaviest Pokemon, Wailord, would be extremely easy. Nurse Joy was extremely worried, since Wailord was not fully recovered and needed water not only to recover, but also just to, stay in the shape that it was currently in, because since it was a water Pokemon, it needed water. It couldn't stay on land for very long. Sure, some water Pokemon could survive without water, but Wailord was not one of those. It required water to live. Knowing this, Ash and Pikachu took action, as Ash told Pikachu to use Thunderbolt on the Meowth balloon, but before Ash could do this, Combuskin stepped up and used Flamethrower on the Meowth balloon to stop Team Rocket from moving, and then it leaped up to the Meowth balloon and used Double Kick on the ropes attaching the harness to the balloon, which destroyed the ropes and sent Wailord plummeting down into the water, much to everyone's shock, obviously creating huge waves. Because of the Meowth balloon no longer having the immensely heavy Wailord at the bottom of it, this caused the Meowth balloon to shoot up into the sky. However, it soon returned down to a normal height, allowing Ash to finally have Pikachu finish Team Rocket off with a Thunderbolt, destroying the Meowth balloon and sending Team Rocket blasting off. Stephanie and her father were amazed by Ash's Pikachu, as they applauded Ash and Pikachu, and Stephanie's father stated that Ash was truly a great trainer, and admitted that this was the first time he himself had ever appreciated Pokemon before. He only was having his daughter pick a starter because his daughter really wanted one. Ash thanked them for their compliments, and then Nurse Joy butted in and asked Stephanie if she had made her choice between Trico or Mudkip yet, stating that unfortunately Combuskin was not an option, since due to Combuskin being a second stage mon, it was probably too tough for a beginner trainer to handle. Stephanie was fine with this, as she claimed that she had already decided that she wanted to go with Mudkip. Mudkip was very pleased with this, although the Trico was not. It wanted to be picked, so it got sad and started crying, leading Stephanie's father, who now appreciated what Pokemon could do, to feel bad for the Trico and tell Nurse Joy that he would like to take it off her hands as his new Pokemon. Technically, it would be his first Pokemon as well, so it could still count as a starter. Though Stephanie's father did worry that there was an age limit on when you could start becoming a trainer and thought that he may be too old, but thankfully for him, Nurse Joy permitted him to take Trico, so he happily picked Trico up and hugged it as Stephanie did the same to her new Mudkip. As she thanked Joy for giving her and her father starter Pokemon, and Mudkip and Trico cried out happily, very excited to have trainers. Just as excited as Stephanie and her father were to have Pokemon, preparing their lives with them already. Ash then questioned what Nurse Joy was going to do with Combuskin now that it couldn't be chosen as a starter Pokemon, leading Nurse Joy to reveal that after seeing how brave and tough the Combuskin was going against Team Rocket, she had decided to make it a guard for the Pokemon Center so that she could make sure that no more thefts would occur there, like what had happened to Wailord. Max congratulates the Combuskin on being able to find a new purpose in life, as the Combuskin was finally happy, smiling at Max and nodding, assuring Nurse Joy that it would do a great job as a guard. Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy then say goodbye to Stephanie and her father as they walk off happy with their new Pokemon. Max then goes out to the beach, specifically to the edge of the cliff, and yells out to the world that he was going to get a starter Pokemon one day, no matter what day that was, and he couldn't wait for it. The Wailord, happily swimming now, heard what Max had said, and it let out a spout of water and a large cry, stating that it was supportive of Max, or some shit.